Hey guys, welcome back to Cherry and Timber Talk. I hope you guys are having a great week and a great Sunday till now. And we are really pleased to have Devendra back on the show. Hi, Devendra.
Hi. Thank you
You
very
know,
much for inviting me.
Venu,
Our pleasure.
people were having a lovely Sunday until this point.
That's not a very good way to start the show. Within the first minute, come on, man. Within the first minute, we are still on 57 now.
Yeah. All right, guys. So welcome back to Mahesh, Nishad, Yogi. And a very, very interesting topic today, guys. And thanks to Devendra for bringing this up. So next week, is the week where there was a test match at Lords in England in the year 1996, and there was a tale of two debutants for India, and no prizes for guessing. 1996 Lords, Sourav Ganguly and Rahul Dravid. So we thought it's a great time to celebrate those two careers and also talk about how they came into the mainframe. And no better guy to talk about that than Devendra and all of us together. So Devendra, I give the floor to you to kind of start off.
Yes, so my memories of that '96 tour are rather mixed. There was genuine happiness at the fact that for the first time since 1992, and this will seem unbelievable in today's times when the Indian team is it's the biggest box office draw in the game. But after we returned from South Africa in 1992, except for a one-off test match in New Zealand in 1994, we did not go for any tours outside the subcontinent. All we did was go to Sri Lanka for the odd one-day tournament. So from 92 to 96, I mean, imagine the gap. And then this tour happened. We were originally scheduled to tour England in 1994, but the ECB withdrew the invitation and invited New Zealand and South Africa instead to share that summer. Some people believed it was because of what had happened in 93, where India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka came together and there was an acrimonious ICC meeting, and we managed to back the rights for the 1996 World Cup. So
or Devendra, maybe also, sorry, but maybe because what may have happened in 1993 in India when they came here, you can watch that.
Yes, could have been because they did not. Yeah, sure.
Obviously. Oh man, that's an awesome documentary.
I think it was a wasted first half of the decade. I mean, imagine what Sachin's figures would have been like had he got to play more Test cricket in those 3 years. Those 4 years.
In fact, to your point, Devendra, even after 91, 92, we toured Australia literally at 1999 after 7 to 8 years.
Yes. Yeah. No, because we were not valued, and frankly, our performances were not up to the mark in those days. And so when this team was selected, I remember there was a buzz. It is ironic in the light of what happened on that tour, but. The fact is that Sourav Ganguly's selection was very controversial.
Yes.
I remember an effigy of Gundappa Vishwanath, the then chairman of selectors, being burnt in Mumbai by people who were upset about Vinod Kambli's exclusion from that squad. Now, Vishwanath, such a popular figure, his effigy was burnt. So, there were strong opinions. There were some weird selections, only 3 specialist fast bowlers in a tour of England, which was that old-fashioned tour of England, where you played practically all the counties and 3 test matches. So you had just Srinath, Prasad and Paras Mamre. Only one specialist wicketkeeper in Nayan Mongia, with Sanjay Manjrekar and Rahul Dravid, supposed to take turns to debut. And then the team also began on a very acrimonious note. Navjot Singh Sidhu fought with the management, announced his retirement, returned home. Then we lost the first test, and then Sanjay Manjrekar got injured in that first test and was ruled out of the second test at Lords. That's how 2 vacancies in the batting order opened up, and the rest is history.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also
Dravid batted at number 7, right?
Number 7,
yes,
exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Because we had Nayan Mongia opening with Jadeja. Vikram Rathore, if memory serves me right, scored a lot of runs in the county matches, but he struggled a bit in the first test. And I think, if memory serves me right, Mongia opened the batting in the Lords test, which is why Rahul came at number 7. So even Ajay Jadeja batted above Rahul.
Correct. Exactly.
Vikram Rathore did play the match.
Correct. That's very strange.
So he was the designated opener. Correct. Along with Mongia. Correct. So just to give the viewers the context about the scorecard of this game, so England batted first. They scored 344 runs. And, trust me, we had them on the mat. And, out of all people, here comes Jack Russell and scores 124. It kind of it kind of takes me, in a comparison metric, takes me to 2011 when Stuart Broad came in and scored that 100, after having them at 124 for 8 or something. So, that's kind of similar. And then, we came back in the game and we scored, we took a first innings lead, scored 429. But even, in our innings, we were kind of in trouble till the time Ganguly and Dravid took over, and that was a time when, Ganguly scored 131. Sachin got a beauty by Chris Lewis. It was kind of a leg cutter, just took the top of off stump and, beat his outside edge, which was quite, strange, given that Tendulkar was always, awesome with the outside edge, more than the inside edge part where, he used to get bowled. And then, Azharuddin, Jadeja got out cheaply, Dravid and Ganguly. I'll let Mahesh describe the innings and, how he saw the debuts. Can you hear us?
I think Devendra should do it because I think he's a better storyteller than me.
All right, Devendra.
Yeah,
maybe.
so Sourav Ganguly came in at 1 down, so he had, I think, given a good account of himself in the last one-day game that preceded the first test. I think he'd scored about 46 or so, and he missed the first test. Then, as I said, there were 2 vacancies, and both he and Rahul Dravid got opportunities. And I think Sourav Ganguly was under a lot of pressure because, as I said, his selection was controversial. There was a lot of talk about the Bengal quotient in those days. It used to be said that you should play Ranji Trophy cricket for Bengal, and then your chances of getting selected for India, substantially increase. It was unkind because he had been a consistent performer at the domestic level for the past 3 or 4 seasons, and full credit to him for coming up with a brilliant 100 and those drives through the offside and leading Rahul to comment that first there is God and then there is Sourav as far as the offside is concerned. As far as Rahul is concerned, it was a steady climb again through domestic cricket. He had excelled for Karnataka. He did well for India A. So both Ganguly and Dravid came up the ladder. I think their success was it just underscored the robust nature of the Indian domestic structure, the much maligned Indian domestic structure. Because by the time both made their debuts in that 96 series, they had both been playing Ranji Trophy since 1990-91. They were like the finished products by then.
In fact, the controversial part there was, Devendra, Ganguly made the 91 tour of Australia and, he actually debuted in a one-day international before making the test debut. So it was a kind of a comeback of sorts for him. And, there was a lot of talk going around, the way he debuted in that game and, the way he was behaving more so, right? Everybody was like calling him the Maharaja, he'll not carry drinks to the field. And, so many talks were going around. Allegedly. Exactly. Exactly, right? So that's what I'm saying. So much of, coverage around that and then making a comeback and making a statement, it kind of was a testimony to his character as well in terms of fighting back, which we have already seen in his international career. And, it kind of started from there. So it was not the best, conditions or, environment to debut, but then he really made the most of it. And I think to your point as well, Devendra, Subhajit makes a great point. At one end, Dravid was tipped to be the next batting great, and there was so much talk about Ganguly, he was completely written off. So, so that was the kind of environment there.
Yes, so, it was very hostile.
Exactly.
And in the very next test, Sourav scored another 100, had a big partnership with Sachin. And it was he pretty much set it up. And I think 1996, if you look at 1996, it was a very significant year for Indian cricket because 4 months down the line, VVS Lakshman made his debut. And even he scored a match-winning half-century in a low-scoring game at Ahmedabad, famous Ahmedabad test. So,
took that 6 for 21 there. Was that the game?
Yes. So 96, marked the rebirth, you can say, the resurgence of the great Indian middle order. Obviously, Ganguly, Dravid and Lakshman did take a couple of seasons to really mature and get going. But that description of the Indian team as Sachin Tendulkar and 10 others, which, had many people had come up with that, including Richard Hadley in the 90s. I think finally there was reason for people to believe that the Indian team no longer is Sachin and 10 others.
Absolutely. In fact, on that point, Nishad, that was a stage when Sachin was really becoming the phenomenon that he was. 1996 World Cup, 523 runs he scored in that tournament. And then after that, this tour happened, So he was actually at the peak of his powers, literally, becoming the best batsman in the world in that era, right? So what's your memory of that tour, Nisha?
Okay, firstly, I was only 5 years old, so not 1996. I only remember one thing that is Jayasuriya smashing us at Delhi, and then the heartbreak in Calcutta. So that's what I mainly remember from 1996. But yes, as youngsters, we used to often be told when we used to play, gully cricket that, you should see what Sachin's doing. But then from 96 onwards, there were two more names that were added.
Yes.
First was Sourav, but Rahul was later on in 98, 99 when he became more of a one-day batsman and he established himself in the one-day side. But Sourav definitely, the way he rose in stature and the amount of stuff that we've seen from Sourav, I think, you have to realize and give him credit that he has shown that mental strength at every occasion whenever it has challenged him. 91, he came in and faced Malcolm Marshall, got out. And then later, there were, of course, allegations that he was not behaving well, which, by the way, you should read his book because he presents his side of the story. We do not know what has happened. We should read his side. I mean, there's obviously the narrative spread that is against him, but we should read his side of the tale as well because for a fact that in a dressing room, especially in those times, there can be many stories with one person spreading it and it can all just, someone adds it. You never know. That is first and foremost. But then to be selected when everyone's against you, to show that kind of mental strength. And through the early 90s, Rahul and Sachin were always in the India A scheme of things. Along with Amol, along with the others. There was Ajay Jadeja, who when he was not with the Indian team, used to play for India A. So they were always playing the touring sides. There was a very strong India A side that had gone to Sharjah the previous year as well, which faced all of them. And I think they had won over there against Pakistan. So that was the kind of strength that these guys had shown with India A. Rahul, in fact, was picked for the Indian team in 1994 during the Wills World Series. Didn't play a game, but he was in the side then. So finally, to get the opportunity, Rahul made it in for the Singapore series, and then they went into the England tour. And to immediately give an account of themselves in those conditions, Rahul getting 95 and then Sourav getting 131, it definitely showed that there was a lot more to Indian batting, and the golden era of Indian batting, so to say, started that year. And with wickets coming in 1996 in November, that only strengthened from there. And it was really amazing to see that. So from my perspective, it was, of course, that, we all spoke about Sachin at the time. Although growing up, my favorite used to be Azharuddin. I just liked the swagger with which he walked and the way he used to play. But, Sachin had become a kind of a beacon for the next generation. Azhar in his late 30s, you knew it could be any time. He could possibly, drift away from the game. You were looking for someone who was there later on. And I think with these two coming in that test match, it definitely heightened a lot of hopes. By the way, from the Navjot Singh Sidhu incident, and the fact that they were carrying only 3 medium pacers, a fun fact for you is that when Navjot Singh Sidhu pulled out of the tour, guess whom they picked as a replacement?
Yes.
And the batsman had gone out. They picked a fast bowler, Salil Ankola, who was playing league cricket in England. He was asked to join. So a fast bowler using an opening batsman. Again,
the 1990s was a weird time for Indian cricket. And of course, the grand culmination of all that was in April 2000 post Cronier's revelations. But 1990s was a terrible time, and I mean, it was just wonderful to see these two youngsters and a third youngster, if you count Lakshman, coming in literally like a breath of fresh air. Because I remember when I interviewed Mr. Sandeep Patil, who was the coach of that Indian team for my book on Rahul, he told me that had these two guys not performed the way he did, I don't know where Indian cricket would have been in, after that tour. He made that point. I mean, those were terrible times. And Nishad was very young, as he said, but I distinctly remember some one-day games where certain members of the Indian team, they would make it so blatant. I mean, you were like, come on, at least be subtle about it, You have no shame, we know that, but don't make it so obvious. And then all that, of course, culminated in April in 2000, the can
Yeah.
of worms being open. But I think
Correct.
Ganguly and Dravid, they did us a big favor by playing the way they did, and just brought a smile on our faces. Those were gloomy times, very
I
gloomy
agree.
times.
Yes, and I was about to come to Yogi and say what Nishad wanted to say actually about the foundation of the Fab Four, which came later. The golden era of our batting that was literally laid in stone. In 1996 when these two guys debuted, and then Lakshman came later. Right, that was the time when we started believing that our batting unit could perform together as a team instead of just relying on one Tendulkar all the time. Right, Yogi?
Yeah, it also changed the kind of teams we would be invited to play with. I mean, you remember the N number of Zimbabwe, Kenya, Bangladesh, and all of these teams that we were forced to sort of play through that period, and it was
Yeah.
it was waste of good talent against not so good teams.
Yes.
And I think apart from the risk, we already know what that period had also done was Indian cricket had lost a significant chunk of fan base who'd started losing trust and faith. And you would
Correct.
say, obviously, number one, credit to Sachin Tendulkar for being that beacon of hope and keeping fans connected to the game. But again, he was ably supported by these three or four people who kind of, chipped in and kind of took over the baton from likes of Azharuddin and Jadeja and all of that, and kind of, pushed Indian cricket into a completely new era. And obviously that gave rise to a completely new fan base, and then I think Indian cricket could capitalize on that momentum going forward. Like you were saying, Devendra, I think that era of 1990s was such a difficult time to actually retain the fans. We saw how unstable the teams were that time. So many people came in, made debut. People had to kind of question as to why are these guys even coming in and kind of playing and things like that. So many deserving names actually never got to play. So it was a bit of a sordid tale. I mean, I know somebody like, let's say, Amol Muzumdar, who should have made a debut but never got one. The people in the Maharashtra setup who could have actually played for Indian team never got to actually look in. People like Bhave and Shantanu Sugwekar, tons and tons of runs, right? And then you go on and actually see on the spin side of things, and you had somebody like Utpal Banerjee and all of these names. All of a sudden, you see that era of Indian cricket, forgettable names, forgettable careers, and people who actually should have actually got a chance and should have actually played for India never did.
Yep.
And amidst
Yep.
all of that chaos, you'd say that these guys, when they got a chance, they capitalized on it. And you'd say that it is their mental fortitude during those clutch moments that they actually grabbed that opportunity and stayed on. Because, like you were saying, if they'd not, we would probably have seen another 5 years of forgettable cricket from India. And so you just have to sort of give credit to Sourav and Rahul there. Very different styles of play. And to also Sourav, because I think not only as a great batsman but also as a leadership person, right? That Tendulkar actually struggled with leadership for all his brilliance with the bat, and the kind of teams that he was given, he wasn't sort of getting the success that he deserved, so to speak. So you needed somebody who had a fresh approach and said, okay, fine, I'll kind of take it by the bull really, and see the next phase through. So Sourav not just established himself as a batsman, but had the sort of guts and courage to take over the leadership and push Indian cricket forward. So you'd say you have to be thankful for people like these, because when you turn around and look at numbers, you'll get into a very wrong kind of a debate there. But for the contribution they made to the era, to the cricket, just amazing.
I think I personally believe, I mean, you have Sachin and Sourav and Rahul and Anil Kumble, Javagal Srinath. So, they scored a lot of runs, took a lot of wickets, won many matches series. But I think their greatest contribution to Indian cricket was what they did post 2000. The manner in which they all came together and steered Indian cricket out of that mess. With Sourav, of course, taking the lead. Sourav had just been appointed full-time captain. So I think that is their greatest contribution to to cricket, because they restored the intake. They brought back smiles on faces of fans, and they restored the credibility of Indian cricket. So that will always remain their greatest contribution. I mean, you have to look at other countries, what happened, what the situation was, and then compare it with what happened in India. I mean, these guys just stood up. They rose to the occasion.
And Devendra, look at it, right? 1997, and I feel Indian cricket's finest hour was actually 2003 World Cup, right? I mean, apart from that, okay, slightly forgettable final, how Indian cricket had made rapid progress within those, from 2000 to 2003 to actually be, that strong ODI team. We'd never seen that convincing a performance from Indian teams ever before. I mean, obviously, 1983 we won the World Cup.
Since 85. Yeah, correct.
Exactly, but 85 to 2003, that kind of dominance, right? Playing at the world stage, playing away from India, it was brilliant to watch. I mean, that day we also know that if one or two things would have worked out, who knows? India could have won the World Cup in 2003 as well because the team was that strong, and we know that it was likes of, let's say, Lakshman, Dravid, and Sourav who were playing along with Sachin to actually make that dream possible.
Of course. I mean, when you to talk about the 2003 World Cup, what Rahul did. I mean, he was the vice captain of the team. When Sourav and John Wright told him that, look, we need you to keep wicket in ODIs, Rahul could have said, I'm the vice captain. I'm sorry. I want to focus on my batting. But, Rahul being the team man that he is, being the kind of person he is, he did it. And, we had batting right down to number 7 and that changed everything.
Yes.
Sachin, of course, was moved down the order, but he went back to opening during that World Cup. But I think Rahul's decision to keep wicket in ODIs, that added a lot of balance to the team. We did not have a wicket-keeping all-rounder, so we manufactured one, and Rahul was willing to take up that challenge. So absolutely phenomenal. Saurav's captaincy, of course, I mean, you only have to look at the players who either made their debuts or flowered or flourished under his captaincy. And it's like it makes for awesome reading. So you start with Yuvraj Singh, Zaheer Khan, Virender Sehwag, Gautam Gambhir, and Mahendra Singh, a certain Mahendra Singh Dhoni as well.
Harbhajan Singh, Mohammad Kaif, all these guys. I
mean, all these guys. So they either made their debuts under him or they flourished under him. Sehwag, as we all know, played one match in '99, came back after 2 years. Sourav told him, we need you to open the batting, and we all know what Sehwag did as opening batsman. I mean, amazing. So these two cricketers, they just.
I was watching this interview of, I think, Mohammad Kaif. So it was like he said that Sourav used to tell them something. It was nothing that can you do it? It was like karna hai, and he's like he would show so much confidence in you that invariably these guys would follow through. Like take the example of Sehwag opening the batting. And where to open the batting at Lords that first game scores 82 and then in the second game scores 110, just plays his game. Sourav basically tells him that it's okay if you fail, I will bring you back into the middle order. And even if you read John Wright and Sourav, they combined very well. Even as he told that Lakshman, when Lakshman didn't have a stable career from 96 to 2000. But when John Wright came on, Sourav and John Wright sort of told him that we are giving you 10 test matches, you perform. We are not going to drop you. Here are your 10 test matches. And in the second or third test match, he scored the 281. Then there was no looking back.
I think a prime example, what I can gather from all these things is that in terms of situational leadership, Devendra, that 2000 era and how Ganguly and even all the senior players rallied around him, right? That's kind of prime example of situational leadership. On a lighter note, Rahul Dravid donning the gloves. You have another Rahul nowadays, keeping wickets as well. So that's kind of inspiring. So I'll come to Mahesh now. He's been quiet for a while now.
And just to add and to think, out of all those facts, people too wanted to be fast bowlers, Sachin and Sourav. And they went to the Foundation as well.
But they were rejected.
Venu, you wanted to ask Mahesh a question, but I'm going to steal the thunder from you. I'm going to ask Mahesh a question on Sourav and Sachin. And I think, in the most magical spells of batting, when Sourav and Sachin had started batting together, opening in ODIs, right? For the first time we'd seen the fan base in India started splitting to say, is Sourav Ganguly a better batsman than Sachin Tendulkar? Now, who would have thought? But at one point, we had Sourav at that kind of high. Mahesh, do you want to talk about that a bit? That unbeatable partnership and how Sourav was actually succeeding, scoring more hundreds at certain period.
Yeah, I mean, that was a dream partnership, right? I mean, whenever they went out, they scored runs. They won a lot of matches for India, which is very important. And like all of you all said, during that 2000 time when Indian cricket was going through a lot of turmoil, I think Sourav Ganguly, along with all these guys, I mean, we need to give a lot of credit to Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, Lakshman, Kumble, Srinath, because they all came together, and that's why Sourav could do it, right? And there are certain times I've also heard Sourav talking and saying that he was one captain who had to go and tell seniors, "Can you do this for me?" I mean, so it was not one individual captain. Captaincy was shared by a lot of players, and each one of them played a big role. Having said that, the question you asked me whether Sourav was better or Sachin was better, it was for the first time where somebody was getting very close to Sachin. I mean, other than that, for the last 5-6 years, the gap between Sachin and the rest of the other batsmen was so wide that there was no competition within our country, within the team itself. So for once, when we saw somebody like Sourav coming and scoring runs at a good pace, playing some delightful strokes, having and scoring a lot of runs, that's when people start, comparing. I mean, is Sourav as good as Sachin, or is he better than Sachin? So even if you see in the 1996 debut match, we all say that Sourav does not have great footwork. He came in at number 3 and scored the runs in England, and he came in very early, so which itself says that his hand-eye coordination was fabulous. It was very difficult to play in England at number 3 and score runs. But he did that, right? Now, Dravid batting at number 3, you believe and you expect him to score runs because he's such a phenomenal player, because his technique is so sound. Because Sourav never used to his feet. He like Sehwag, used his hand-eye coordination, and he scored so many runs. He scored 2 centuries, not even one. Whereas Dravid did not score his century on debut. He missed it by a few runs. But so, if you see Sourav and Sachin's, that partnership, I think, played a big role in staking claim as India being a number 1 test one-day side. Because Sourav was a very, very good one-day player. I mean, right to the end, I think he was a very good one-day player. He was a better one-day player than test match player. That's how I would want to sum it up.
Interesting. Guess what, Mahesh? Dravid did get his name on the Lord's Honours Board in 2011 when he was like jumping like a kid when he scored that 100, right? So that was like justice done, right?
Yeah, so when I interviewed Alan Lamb was saying that I was asking him about this, about who the favorite players are. He just says Sachin doesn't have the name on the board. Gavaskar doesn't have the name on his board. Venkat has scored 3 centuries out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even Ajit Agarkar has his name on the board.
Ajit Agarkar.
Ponting doesn't have. Lara doesn't have.
Ponting doesn't have. I mean, so.
Yeah. And one interesting point, Mahesh, which you brought up, which I'll ask Devendra as well, right? He mentioned about them, coming onto the scene, sort of not having that great footwork, so-called, footwork, and then scoring that 100, and even Dravid as well, right? These two also had certain challenges, even that after the 1996 tour, because Ganguly was predominantly seen as an offside player, and I remember precisely teams exploiting that weakness and trying to bowl to his pads. And he had to actually develop that game to kind of score runs on the leg side as well. And Dravid, he was always seen as just a pure test batsman. And he actually did struggle in one days as well with his strike rate, with the inability to kind of pinch singles and, pick the gaps and stuff. But both actually worked on their game. So it wasn't an easy going for them as well, right? Even after those starts.
In fact, I remember after that England series, Sourav did go quiet for a while. And there is a game which nobody strangely talks about, the Johannesburg test of the 97 series against South Africa, where Rahul scored his maiden test 100. He scored 148 in the first innings, 81 in the second innings. And Sourav, I think, scored a 70 and a 60.
Yeah.
And that is the game, I think, where both proved that what happened in England was not a flash in the pan. I think those 2 innings that Sourav played were absolutely brilliant. Rahul, of course, dominated the game, and we were in a winning position. It was a dead game because the series was already lost. But I remember South Africa were in trouble and it rained. But again, that brings me to another point. The 1990s, maybe Nishad will probably find it difficult, to imagine this. But honestly, we never really expected to win that game. So it was like, okay, if they were 5 down and it started raining. Yeah. But it was never, we did not have that kind of belief in our team, that, South Africa, no chance. And after being blown off for 166 in the first test at Durban, it was a torrid time. A few months later, I remember thinking that, okay, we have a chance against the West Indies at Bridgetown.
No, 81 all out.
Like,
Yeah.
being, timed up to
Chasing
watch
120.
but 81 all out, so that was the mindset of the Indian cricket fan was very different from what it is now. We were, I must admit, when it came to Test cricket overseas, we were like, we had that lambs to the slaughter.
Lambs abroad.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Actually, India started believing they could win abroad. I remember the Trinidad Test of 2002. Even when West Indies had finished, they had gotten half the score with 2 down, and Chris Gayle had retired hurt, but he came on to bat later. And I remember my dad saying, this is a game we're going to win. And we won by only 46 runs. And again, Shivnarayan Chanderpaul, sticking to the crease. Even if you went half the length of the pitch and bowled, he would still block it properly, with all the time in the world.
Born in our flesh.
And then the Headingley game, where I think all
Headingley was a major turning
point together.
Yes.
So you had the likes of Dravid batting through the first day, getting all that, taking the platform for Tendulkar and Dravid to just make merry especially on the second evening. Because then Tendulkar was trying everything, charging down the track to the fast bowlers, uppercutting, sort of making room to, play cross.
Slaughtered.
The previous day it was moving all over the place, and these guys were just playing one-day cricket that evening.
I remember that Headingley game, when I interviewed Sachin for my Rahul biography, I asked him about the Headingley test because it was one game in which all 3 of them scored centuries. Sachin told me that he went into bat very late, I think on the second day, and the ball was still creating impressions on the pitch after bouncing. So he said if it was creating impressions on the pitch when I went into bat a little late, just imagine how it must have been like at the start of the game when Sehwag and Bangar opened the innings and Rahul batted. So that Headingley test, of course, electing to bat was a very courageous decision. I remember completely shocked at the toss. So what are you doing? You're actually electing to bat. And that was a courageous decision. And then our spinners, Anil led the way. We won by an innings. So that was a historic moment in Indian cricket, winning that match at Headingley.
Correct. And I think you spoke about. Okay, go ahead, Yogesh. Go ahead.
No, just a different aspect I wanted to bring together as to in terms of some perceptions around Rahul Dravid's style of batting, etc. But then also how Sourav and Rahul actually came up with that monumental innings against Sri Lanka and the pace that they'd set up with. So you got to see a variety, and they kind of I'd say it's the security you get when sometimes you're playing with players you fully trust, and that kind of brings out a completely different side to your game. So I think Rahul Dravid, a while ago we were mentioning how he could actually be aggressive in ODI cricket, and that I feel is thanks to how Sachin and Sourav were playing with him as well.
I remember that Taunton game, the World Cup game at Taunton. For those of us who had seen Sanat Jayasuriya and Kalu Vitran and the others slaughtering the Indian bowling, I cannot tell you how payback. It was big payback. I mean, it was fantastic. Fine, the was on the taller side, but still the boundary cleared. And I think the sixes that they hit, Sourav hit, the ball was going into the lake. They were huge. They would have been sixes on any ground, but that was payback time. Fantastic.
It was proper payback. That one, and also I would say even the next India-Sri Lanka game at Johannesburg, 2003, when you got them 90
for 3 or something.
Just to see the Sri Lankan top order, just cutting everything to point. And Chavaka Srinath getting 4, Nehra getting 4, Zahir getting 2. I think that also was very satisfying.
I mean, trust me, I haven't seen.
Against Jayasuriya, once Zahir and Nehra came in, because as left-handers, they could keep him quiet. They started getting the ball back into him.
Correct. Did not give him room. And I think I haven't seen, that kind of annihilation of a person like Muralidharan, like we saw in Taunton. That game, the way Dravid and Ganguly, hit him out of the park like as if he's a club bowler, right? I mean, imagine, hitting Murli like that, and he had no clue at all, what to do against the Indian batsman.
And talking about Murli, our another match that has sort of been forgotten, and it should not be forgotten, is a test match at Kandy in 2001. We were without Sachin and Lakshman for that series, and we were set, I think, 264 to win. Yes. And Murli was at his peak, absolute peak. He was making it like, I think they had won the first test with a big margin. Rahul scored 75, absolutely brilliant footwork, and the way he handled Murli was like, it was a joy to see. And Sourav remained unbeaten with 98. Great innings at a time when he was not doing well. There was a story about Mr. Raj Singh Dungarpur flying to Sri Lanka and telling Rahul in front of the entire team that you be ready to take over as captain. So, Rajbhai and Sourav, I mean, he had a problem with Sourav. So, those were tough times for Sourav. And 98 not out, I remember we were slightly disappointed. We wanted Sourav to complete his 100, but Mohammad Kaif got this full toss. And he had no option but to hit it for 4. I remember. And
was that Suraj Randeep part 1?
I don't think so. It wasn't that play.
Correct.
It was
good one.
No, because they did that once even in Cuttack, where Tendulkar was nearing 100 and one of their bowlers bowled 5 wides.
Yeah.
I don't remember this, but Suraj Randeep, of course, that was like epic.
That was the hype.
So another batting partnership I want you to talk about Sachin and Rahul against New Zealand.
Hyderabad.
That was the Hyderabad game.
Yes.
Yeah, that again, I mean, just total annihilation. Batting friendly wicket, but again, the runs have got to be scored, and that was a day where they were just unstoppable. And for Rahul, particularly, it was after a very successful World Cup for it. 97, 98 had not been the best of times for him. He had been branded as a test match specialist. And I remember watching this one-day game at Wankhede against Bangladesh. There was a tri-series
from 25 balls.
Yeah, May 98, India, Kenya, Bangladesh, and there was a game at Wankhede. And all the bench strength was being given chances in that series. But for this Wankhede game, Sachin and Rahul were both picked in the side. And Anshuman Gaikwad, the coach, had apparently, pleaded with the selectors to pick Rahul and, give him a chance. And we, Bangladesh, were bowled out for about 120, 125 odd. So we had all the time in the world to achieve the target. Sachin got us off to a flying start. In about 7-8 overs, we had crossed about 70-80. Rahul came in, and it was one of those days, try as he might, he just could not, pierce the gaps. And then after scoring 1 in 24, 25 balls, he was bowled. And I still remember the capacity crowd at Wankhede Stadium, like literally booing and cursing him off the wicket. And that was the time I felt ashamed that day, to see the crowd behaving the way it was. Yeah. And I did feel that Rahul will probably never play one-day cricket again. But full credit to him. He came back in the one-day side, did very well on the New Zealand tour. And then, of course, the World Cup where he was the highest scorer. So that Hyderabad innings, he was already a permanent member of the ODI team. That confidence showed, And Sachin, of course, was in one of those moods.
Was there?
I think that New Zealand tour which you mentioned, right? Sorry, go ahead, Nishad. Go ahead.
So also we forget, he's still got the second fastest 50 for India in ODIs, 22 balls.
20 balls.
22 balls. And also there were so many. There was one, like, a lot of the times, even later in his career when he used to come in the slog overs, he used to actually smash it. Like there are 2 innings, one at Bristol in 2007 and one at Nagpur in 2005, 92, 93 odd of like 50, 60 balls.
Correct.
And completely, especially, like anything short, wide outside the off stump full, he was clearing the boundary over cover. So it showed that how much he had come a long way as a batsman. Also.
Yes. I think what Devendra mentioned, that New Zealand tour, right, Devendra? That's where he scored that one-day 100, I think in Hamilton or
Taupo.
Wellington. Yeah.
He was
probably Taupo. Yeah. So I think that innings kind of transformed his ODI career. That's what a lot of people said, that, the way he scored that 100 there. After that, the curve was really upwards for Rahul Dravid. And that really
it was he what he did in England in the World Cup, the biggest stage of all. That was
Yes.
fantastic. Some of the innings he
Yes.
played, the Sri Lanka 100, of course,
Yep.
but even
Yep.
the innings he had, I think he scored a 50 against Pakistan in that
Yep.
Super Six game. So
Yep.
he was just brilliant.
Mhm.
His 100
Yeah.
against Kenya was obviously overshadowed by Sachin's 100, but
Sachin.
that was a great tournament for Rahul, and
I
then
think
he never looked back.
he was very close to getting the Man of the Series award, and he was kind of tipped over by Lance Klusner, I believe, right?
Yes,
In that
yes,
World Cup. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Awesome. I think to summarize, guys, Devendra,
Max
probably
Klusner would
one
have
thing
had
which
2
is
trophies. Had
to
Alan
what?
Donald run,
Oh yeah.
Max Klusner would have 2 trophies.
Oh God! And it was just yesterday, I was following Rob Moody's Twitter handle, and he posted that video of the catch being dropped by Herschel Gibbs.
Yeah,
Yeah. So just to summarize, Devendra, I think the striking thing which I felt, and this is afterwards, when Saurav took over as captain, and you really summarized this earlier as well about the 90s, wherein selection was, really pathetic, and I think what sort of changed was the quota selection policy, or, picking people from zones. I think that was something which was really abolished. And that was, my highlight of, Sourav Ganguly's captaincy, where, when he changed that part, after that, the team automatically started, rallying around him. When people were just picked for talent as well as passion towards, for succeeding for India. And that's something which he really changed. And probably that kind of reflects in the results as well, right? The way it kind of went out.
Yeah, I mean, he as captain, as we all know, the captain doesn't really have a vote in selection meetings, but he was able to, convince the selectors. And what he did, I think Saurav's greatest feat as captain was the way he backed youngsters. As we have already referred to this, the amount of belief that he instilled in youngsters, that I am there for you, I'll back you. That will remain his greatest contribution to Indian cricket. And then obviously the domestic structure. I mean, as I said, Ganguly and Dravid, they were not overawed, they were not intimidated when they made their debuts because they had played Ranji Trophy for half a decade. They had played against A teams, they had played at the junior levels. So they had come up the ladder. And then, of course, in the first half of the new millennium, first decade. Yes, of course. And then in the first decade of the new millennium, we had this TRDO system instituted by the BCCI, where a lot of players, including a certain MSD, they were all, their entry into the Indian team was fast-tracked. So all these things put together, and a lot of the dead wood of the late 90s had been put to pasture, had been, sent to Siberia, basically. So that also helped. No negativity in the dressing room.
Yep. All right. So to conclude, guys, let's go one by one. Maybe we'll start with Yogi. What's your favorite memory, Yogi, of these two gentlemen?
Two gentlemen, I'd say
either individually or together.
I'd say, one man who was a common factor between some of the most legendary knocks by Sachin Tendulkar by Sourav Ganguly was Rahul Dravid. He was the constant, when VVS Lakshman put on the monumental 281, when Sachin put on that sensational 100 against New Zealand, it was Rahul Dravid. And I just feel, this common factor allowed somebody like Sachin and Sourav to fully express themselves.
Wow, well summed up. Yep. Mahesh. Can you hear us, Mahesh?
Yeah, okay. So I would say that the 1999 World Cup match that we were just talking about, India versus Sri Lanka, I think if you look at the partnership, I think that was the most dominating partnership that I've ever seen being played. But if you take individually, I think the 2001 Ashes Trophy finals that Sourav and Sehwag started off, I think Sourav played a brilliant innings before he got out, because that actually set it up for India. We lost a few wickets in between, and then we all know what Yuvraj and KF did. But the starting, we rushed around for about, maybe we scored about 70, 80 in no time. Well, Sehwag did a lot of runs as well, but I think Sourav played a very good innings there as well. And you see, Sachin's best year has been around 98, 99. That is when these two guys came along, right? They had 2-3 years experience, and we don't talk too much about the first time that Tendulkar played one in India. I mean, that 155 that he scored in Chennai. Sachin started playing with a lot more freedom because he knew that there were other batsmen who he could depend on, who would at least hold the fort. Because otherwise, Sachin had to score the runs very much like Gavaskar, and also had to hold fort. Now, when you have to do two things, it becomes extremely difficult, even if you're Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, Nishad, what's your favorite memory?
So with Rahul Dravid, now I know I had written this article back when he had retired that he was the eternal bridesmaid sometimes because everybody else would out. But I would pick two moments for Rahul Dravid: the 233 at Adelaide. He was way ahead, and of course those two knocks at Jamaica in 2006 on that absolute minefield. Nobody else was getting the runs. Nobody could score the runs, including Brian Lara struggled. It was only this guy who got the runs on that pitch. And he just showed he was miles technically above the others.
And I think even Lara spoke a lot about this innings from Dravid for these two innings. Yeah, I remember that.
With Sourav, I think it was also not what happened on the field at Lord's, but what happened off it. Because I think, you know what, it broke the shackles for Indian cricket. It sort of told the snooty traditionalists that this is in your face, this is what we are, this is how we are, and we are expressive. That's how we are going to be. And there were no hang-ups of any previous era. And I think that really changed the mindset for everyone. It was very symbolic. And you see, after that, all the generations, they don't have hang-ups. Anyway, India was changing, but that was very symbolic of it all that was coming.
Yes. Coming from the captain, right? It's like in your face. Yeah. I mean, the team then rallied around him and, they thought, wow, man.
So apparently, as he was trying to get his shirt up, VVS was next to him and he was trying to pull it up. And Harbhajan apparently and some of the others had come up that all of them should do it, but Rahul had sort of outranked and outvoted all of them. But obviously he can't outrank the captain.
Oh God, yeah, I know. So quickly summarizing my two favorite moments, again, slightly different ones. For Rahul Dravid, I would say the partnership that he had with Yuvraj Singh against Pakistan in 2003 World Cup, I think that was really critical because after losing those wickets in the middle order, right, I thought that, Pakistan is doing Pakistan things, right? After India starting so beautifully, now they are kind of coming back and knocking us over. But I think that partnership was really crucial. And I think Dravid was really instrumental in, even guiding Yuvraj, he was young at that time, to kind of take India to victory. And that was really crucial. I felt that, the way those two guys handled that situation. And Ganguly, a lot of people have spoken about this, always. I think that 144 at Brisbane was kind of an innings which kind of, set the tone for that tour. And it made a statement that, we are not pushovers, we are not here, and we don't have those demons from the 99 tour. And, we are here to win. I think that was something which was really, really critical. And I felt that the way he played that innings kind of set the tone for Dravid to come and Lakshman and Dravid to kind of dominate in the next test match as well, right? So India played differently in that series completely. And I felt that, we had our best chance to kind of win a series in Australia. We kind of just missed that by a small margin. Because of what happened in Sydney on day 5. But then I really felt that we could have won that series for sure.
We could have got LB.
All right, Devendra. Devendra, maybe we'll close off with your two favorite ones.
Yeah, so as far as Sourav is concerned, Nishad just mentioned it, the shirt off at Lord's. So I will not elaborate on that. But as Nishad said, he made a statement. I remember that 50 he scored against South Africa at Johannesburg in what was his comeback test match. Again, there was a lot of pressure. Greg Chappell as coach. He had been picked in the test team. I think he got runs in the 4-day game that preceded the test match as well. And I remember I was in Johannesburg on the eve of the game. I was working for PMG then, and we had organized an awards function at the Santon Hotel. And all the Indian media persons who were there, they were all saying, when I asked them, what do you think is going to happen? Because we had been thrashed in the one-day series. And the media said, by tea time on day 3, it will be over. South Africa will win hands down. And then, of course, Reeson bowled well. But I think Sourav made all the difference with, I think he scored 151. Just 51, but a very critical innings. And just showcased his temperament. And as far as Rahul is concerned, 180 against Australia in the greatest test match of all time. Because that started this, producing classics in crisis situations
Yeah,
and match-winning innings. So after that, 75 against Sri Lanka at Kandy, then the 100, then Headingley, of course, then Adelaide 233, then 270 against Pakistan at Rawalpindi, which was a series-winning innings. And then, of course, the 2 innings that Nishad talked about in 2006.
Jamaica.
I remember VVS Lakshman telling me about those 2 innings that he played. It was Jamaica, right? Kingston.
Yes, Jamaica. Yeah.
So Lakshman told me that all the venues in the West Indies were undergoing renovation for the World Cup. The World Cup was a few months away.
2007,
So temporary dressing rooms had been erected square of the wicket. So they were all watching Rahul's footwork from from those makeshift dressing rooms, and he said it was absolutely brilliant to see his footwork during those 2 innings. That would be those were my favorite Rahul memories.
Yeah, I think probably I could say that Rahul Dravid of that 2001 to 2005, that era was the best that we have seen from him, and that was sublime, man. You could even compare it with the Sachin of say 1996 to 1999, right? That was the class that he produced.
Yes.
I mean, is the thing, right? At their best, Sourav and Rahul were capable of being inches ahead of Sachin. I mean, I don't think you can probably give any better compliment to these 2 gentlemen than that. Probably.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. I think, fabulous discussion. Thanks a lot, Devendra, for joining in. Thank you guys for joining as well. I mean, I love this discussion. And thank you, everybody who commented as well. Suvajit, Bhash, Yashasvi, fabulous comments as well. So, I think, we really took a trip down memory lane today, and really hoping and looking forward to the next week's WTC finals. I was about to tweet a very cheeky thing today that it seems that I missed the second match between England and New Zealand. I was about to tweet that is the pitch all right? What happened to England? But then I thought it's better not to say anything because India is playing next.
Yes.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great Sunday, and look forward to catching up again.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.